everybody. Welcome to the morning show. We're coming to you today on WJOP-LP Newburyport at FM 96.3 on Channel 9 and on Newburyport Community Media's YouTube station at ncmhub.org. I'm your host, Mary Jacobsen, and this morning I'm just delighted to welcome Reverend Rebecca Bryan, minister of First Religious Society, Unitarian Universalist Church. She's a returning and always welcome guest. She's here to share her personal and always very practical wisdom with us on an important and really timely theme, that of interconnectedness. So, Reverend Rebecca, first of all, thank you so much for returning to the morning show.
Oh, I'm so excited, Mary. I'm delighted to be here. I always enjoy our time.
Me too. I'm excited too. Well, I thought we could start off, if you could talk a little bit about what made you decide that the time was right to explore this topic, and could you describe for us what you mean by interconnectedness?
Sure, absolutely. So every year at church we have a ministry theme for the year. So we have a concept that we're focusing on throughout the year to help us be because the world can be pretty overwhelming, right?
It certainly can.
So having last year it was peace. This year it's interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And what that means to me, I mean, I think it's a lot about what we'll be talking about together, but it really does mean that, first of all, it's a fact, right, that everything is interconnected. And I truly believe that us losing that, like, or keeping it only as an intellectual sort of piece of knowledge as opposed to living from that place, is a huge part of what's destroying the world, and that by bringing that into our mind, our body, our soul, our spirit, which is all part of that interconnectedness, right? We are interconnected within ourselves, parts of ourselves, body, mind, spirit, even, preferences, right? I love the city, but I love the country. Like, all that's interconnected. But so are we interconnected with each other and with, nature. We are nature.
Yes.
Nature isn't something there.
Right.
We are nature.
Right.
So I just believe it's incredibly important right now, and timely that we need to return to that knowledge that, by the way, happy solstice.
Oh, yes. We'll be getting a little bit more daylight starting tomorrow.
Yes.
Yes, thank you.
Our indigenous neighbors and people, they knew this.
Yeah.
This is not, I think this is ancient truth. And science has caught up with that, but this is something that people have known and lived with for a long time. So,
yeah, it's interesting. I mean, what you're talking about makes me think about the idea that people talk about a butterfly flaps its wings in South America and there's a storm in Europe, which is an idea, that we can grasp because it makes sense given the physics. But what you're talking about is it's also a reality that we dwell within every day, but we don't always understand that it actually means we are part of that.
That's right.
We're part of that intricate kind of floating, flowing system.
Yes.
And that there is a benefit to be accrued to us by making it our lived sensual reality. And that's what I actually wanted to ask you about next, is just if you could talk about how making it a lived, felt experience, how does that impact or change us?
Well, first of all, it's okay to do it in doses, right? That it's not, perfectionism is highly overrated. And I think that if we're like, we're just going to live with this awareness all the time, and, so how does it affect us? I mean, it is awesome. I believe that we live in a state of gratitude and awe, and how can we be anything but compassionate? And how can we be anything but grateful and curious? And, if we genuinely live with the knowing that, Mary, you and I are genuinely interconnected. We are part of this same, as you said, lived reality that we're in. It can't help but both soften us and strengthen us. It softens our ability to, as I said, feel compassion, to feel humility of like, oh my God, this world is unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And it strengthens us because when you're hurt, I hurt.
Mm-hmm.
and I want to protect you.
Mm-hmm.
And I want to do everything I can to change things in the world that would cause you pain.
Mm-hmm.
So it's both, it's a lot about both and. I mean, living in this knowing, and genuinely living there asks us to embrace a lot of apparent contradictions, a lot of paradoxes, a lot of
Yeah.
a very expansive,
Yeah.
and the universe is expanding all the time.
Yes, it is.
right?
So, what you're talking about, the word unifying, a unifying kind of consciousness and awareness that
Yes.
has a lot of benefits. As you talk about gratitude, for example, I used to study positive psychology, and there's so much evidence now. I mean, positive psychology used to amuse me in some ways because in our culture, when something has scientific backing, for some reason, we pay more attention. But most of the results of positive psychology are things that, if you had a wise grandmother or grandfather, they told you this.
Yes. That's right.
You could grow up knowing the sense of it. But gratitude, which you mentioned as a benefit
Yes.
of becoming aware of, I think Buddhists talk about dependent arising and dependent origination, that everything is given rise to by everything else, everything everywhere all at once, right?
Yes, that's right.
But it does tend, therefore, to make one feel a more heightened sense of gratitude.
Absolutely.
And also, the other positive impact you noted was more of a sense of, I think, empathy is part of what
yes.
you're describing, and with
Yes.
that compassion for others. And also, the do unto others as one would have others do unto you. If you really grasp interconnectedness, that just makes sense.
Right.
That's
Yes.
kind of like the bottom line.
That's right.
So,
And Mary, we do have those wise grandmothers that you're talking
Yeah.
about, even if we weren't all fortunate enough to have that, in
Yeah.
our biological or chosen families. We have them in our indigenous peoples.
oh yes,
So
we certainly
think of
do.
Robin Wall Kimmerer's work. Why
yeah.
I'm so excited that so many people crave that,
Yeah.
right? And that it's like this bestseller for how long, which lends me to want to offer you a gift. Can I do
Oh
that?
yes,
Which is
It's
part
the
of what she
season.
teaches. So this is a gift from not only me, but from our congregation
oh my.
that is
Okay.
connected to interdependence.
Okay.
This is by Lance Heidi, who's a member of ours, and our green team. But it's compares something called human exceptionalism.
I'm going to hold this so Maeve can have it on camera while you
Beautiful.
describe it.
Yeah. So, and it's directly related to interconnectedness, right? So, this concept of humans separate or above, and hierarchy of being, if you will, right? Which is a whole nother show about where did that come from, and where did
Okay,
it get,
you're on. You're booked.
our thought come that humans are above
Yeah.
others, right?
Yeah.
But that creates this world of but first of all, it isn't sustainable. It isn't interconnected. I am different than nature, than
Yeah.
animals, right? But when we truly recognize that we are one, that we are all interconnected, it inevitably results in a sense of, or not just sense, but decisions that create sustainability for all. So if you look at this web of life, or under human exceptionalism, it's a pyramid. Person is at the top, and it keeps going down. When you look at what Robin Wall Kimmerer calls kinship and reciprocity, we are all one. We're in this
Yeah.
circle together. So
Yeah.
we wanted to offer that to you as a
Thank
gift
you.
for the
Thank you
goodness
so
you
much.
bring
That's
to this
beautiful.
community.
I
Yeah.
really appreciate that.
Yeah.
It'll be a reminder every day of things to think about and be grateful for. So thank you. I
You're
really
very
appreciate
welcome.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
I believe that there are some in the tannery. It's getting around that this image, which is beautiful. So
Yeah. No, I really appreciate that. So bottom line, there's almost an infinite number of benefits to all of us from making this idea a felt understanding and an awareness that we bring to bear in our relationship with ourselves and with everybody that we
Yes.
encounter.
Yes.
And you've kind of been addressing this already with what you've been saying, but I also wanted to ask you about what do you see as the deleterious impacts when we don't do that? When we neglect, ignore, don't reflect upon, or we kind of flow with the things that divide us rather than the things that unite us. How does that impact us in sort of unfortunate, sad, or forlorn ways?
Well, I think you just said it, right? I mean, to live believing we're separate, to live believing we aren't part of, that we don't belong.
Yeah.
I mean, first of all, it sets up, of course, incredible senses of aloneness, loneliness, not belonging. It sets up us and them, and comparisons and competition, and quite frankly, it isn't sustainable. We belong to each other.
Yeah.
And I often think about bigger things like, we have the food to make sure there was no hungry human being on this planet.
Yeah, we do.
That's a result of the fact that there are hungry people is a direct, in my opinion, result of that, living from this, like, you are you, I am me, I've got my needs met, it's too big of a problem anyway, I can't really do anything, it doesn't matter.
Yeah,
That's the kind of stuff it
it's
leads
the
to.
will to share. I think I often think that one of the biggest limitations of our species is that we haven't evolved to understand the importance of sharing. And instead, we think that we'll be less afraid and more secure if we hoard and accumulate. And there's power that comes with that.
It's not life-giving power,
It
though.
is. No, it's not.
It is the opposite of that. It's oppressive, it's unkind, unloving, but it's most importantly, it is not life-giving.
Yeah.
And what people can forget, what we can not remember, is that it may only appear to be not life-giving to the person in front of me, but ultimately it isn't life-giving to any of us.
Yeah,
or
that's
to me
right.
either.
Yeah, makes me think of the Buddhist idea of the realm of the hungry ghosts.
Yes.
Where there are people with really long throats and huge bellies, and the more they eat, the hungrier they get, which always seem to me like a great kind of metaphor for Western consumerism.
Yeah.
And the reason you have to eat more is it doesn't ultimately satisfy, it doesn't gratify anything, it just creates more of an addiction to cramming more stuff, more money, more whatever it is. So, yeah, it's sad, isn't it?
It is so sad. It is really sad. And, I think you're talking about as well the role that capitalism honestly plays into all of this, right? And we are enough. And that hunger is not going to be met. I mean, obviously, we all need enough food because body, mind, spirit, our bodies need to be well and nourished and cared for. But that hunger, that from addiction and from that, like, hoarding, it comes from a sense of, I believe, separation, fear, insecurity, not knowing you're beloved.
Yeah,
just because you are.
Yeah.
Just because you exist.
Yeah, that's right.
So
there is a tremendous amount of loneliness at loose in the world. In fact, Vivek Murthy, the Surgeon General, has described it as an epidemic that our culture is experiencing of loneliness. And there are a lot of factors contributing to that. Yeah. But there is, as you've been talking about, there is a solution to it. And that is interconnectedness, right? And somehow finding a way to reach out to others. I think not waiting for others necessarily to reach out to us, because you can wait a long time, but we can all reach out in whatever small way.
Absolutely.
Even if it's saying hi to somebody you walk past on the street.
Right.
Well, we feel better when we do that, don't we?
Yes.
And one of the things I love about Newburyport is it's a place where pretty much everybody says hi to everybody. It's a walking community, and it's a pretty friendly place.
Yes.
But even those small things we each can do for ourselves, and I think they will build upon one another. Somebody may start a conversation after you say hi.
Yes.
And so there's hope, I think, even for the lonely.
Yes.
So.
Yes.
Well, I did want to ask you, because these can be very challenging times to feel that sense of connection. And speaking truthfully and personally, I sometimes not just feel just divided from others, but alienated from people who hold values and intentions and espouse policies that seem dangerous and not life-affirming to me,
Right.
but antagonistic toward me and the things that I hold dear. So I'm really interested in hearing your thoughts on how you develop a feeling of connection with people who don't see you as fully human, or who would, if empowered to do so, be happy to take your rights away and to dehumanize you as a justification for that. For me, it's hard to feel that connection to people who don't see me as fully human and
Right.
endowed with equal rights that they would claim for themselves. So I know you'll have thoughts about this.
First of all, I just want to say I think it's hard for all of us, for
Yeah.
everyone. And I hear that question. It's probably one of the more, in fact, it somewhat is what led to the theme of interconnectedness
Yeah.
this year, you know. And so I want to just acknowledge that it's real and it's hard. And I'm sorry that you feel that way and that others do. And again, back to that and a world that is, it's so much about both and, right? So I want to bring it back for a moment and suggest that one of the things I think is important is that that we genuinely start and stay with the good. And so I don't think that I would suggest any of us go to those. First of all, if you're not feeling safe, that's not where you're to go.
Yeah.
Others who understand this interconnected will go for you, go in front of you, go on your behalf, do the work necessary. But if we start with the good, right? And so not saying, how do I feel that connection with this extreme experience or person or situation, and then build that capacity of goodness, because goodness is connection,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Goodness is the interconnection. And so that's one thing that I would say. And the other, and maybe this is sort of in the middle of that continuum, would be focus on the goodness and the connections or the shared values or experiences or sorrows you do have. And not what sets us apart. This is one of the reasons, like, for example, you know, if a person has an illness, be it any, connecting with others who have had or are having that same experience, that's what matters in that moment. It's
Yeah.
not about who do you vote for, right? We're going to connect about a shared sorrow or difficulty. And so I love that about, for example, 12-step programs.
Yeah.
When people are in those rooms, it's about, I live with a spouse who's an alcoholic.
Yeah.
How do you live with that?
Yeah.
It's not about who'd you vote for? And, I think in an ideal world, focusing on those places, building the relationships from that shared experiences
Yeah.
gives the greatest possibility. And sometimes it's blood relations, right? It's like, why am I with you? Because you are my aunt or sister or brother. And people will say, is it wrong we don't talk about politics? And I'm like, if you can't talk about politics, if the choice is either you're together and connected and talking about family memories or favorite recipes, or disconnecting, choose the recipes. Talk
Right.
about the recipes.
That's right. Find the connection.
Find what is there.
Right, because we are all human.
Of course.
And because we're all human, there's bound to be something that we can connect about if we can pause and calm ourselves and
Yes.
remember
Yes.
to talk about the recipes or talk about the memories.
Yes.
Or talk about what your favorite books were as a child.
Right.
Or, things that will create that greater feeling
Right.
of connectedness and shared experience, which is a
Yes.
powerful thing
It's
to
a
bring to
very
bear.
powerful thing.
Yeah.
Our neighborhood where we live is quite diverse politically. So we don't talk about that. We talk about our dogs and how much we like the lights on someone's home or bonfires at the end of our driveways for Halloween.
Well, dogs and bonfires are nonpartisan.
Yes.
aren't
Exactly,
they?
right?
I don't remember, just recently I read a description of, life as being a pause between two mysteries. And I often think that if we, following up on what you were saying, if we often remember to think about, we are shared kind of at the at a deeper level, at a more spiritual level, a metaphysical level.
Yes.
Yeah, we're a pause between two mysteries,
That's
and we grapple
beautiful.
with that. Isn't that, it stayed with me. I forget a lot of what I read these days, but that struck me
That's beautiful.
as having a fundamental truth in it. And it takes you to a place which almost, it brings you that sense of awareness of something that's fundamental about the human condition. And that unifies us as well.
Yes. Do you
So-
remember where you read that, or who?
I'll email you.
Because now I want to read it.
Oh
Curious
no,
minds
it was
wanna
by
know.
his name is James Hollis, and he's a Jungian analyst, and he writes books that are just replete with poetry and references to literature and culture, and yeah, you'd like him.
Oh, that's great.
But you know, the other story that I'm talking about made me remember is after 9/11. We went to a talk by a Tibetan Lama at the Harvard Divinity School. And he was talking about how his immediate response after 9/11 was to feel very angry. And he said, you know, we all felt that. And he went to talk to his Tibetan Lama teacher about what he was feeling. And what his teacher said to him was, well, you know, I urge you to remember that what could be more of a deluded state of mind than thinking that engaging in mass violence was a holy act and that would create merit for you? He said, what could be more deluded and lost way of thinking than people who have fallen prey to that level of basically insanity? And as he talked about it, you know, he didn't need to tell, we knew what the lesson was that was coming, that it merits compassion, because it's true that what could be more deluded than thinking that violence, especially violence on a mass scale, was a virtuous action. You are a lost soul if you believe those things. And so I try to apply that also as well, sometimes successfully, not always, but thinking about some of the stances that currently are being taken by people with some of the loudest voices, and what could be more deluded, what could be more the sign of a truly lost soul. Somebody who has dehumanized themselves is the larger problem, and that's where the projection of this onto other people comes from. That it merits compassion, and if you can't get there, go to understanding at least, and then understanding, as you were just eloquently describing before, often will take us to compassion and empathy and understanding, so that we don't get lost ourselves.
Pulled in
Pulled
to the
in,
vortex
that's right.
of
That was-
fear and anger, and
That's right.
And by all those things are human emotions, but they're not where we want to live.
They're fully human,
Right.
You know, we can understand them. We've all felt them
Absolutely.
at times.
And but they're messengers.
That's right.
They're not the world within which we want to only
right.
reside. And I want to go back for a moment about this pause, because I do think that a big and important part of living with this awareness of interconnectedness is self-understanding and self-knowledge and skills, so that when I'm not pausing, when I'm in this like "Rrr" kind of, that I can go, okay, I know myself. What is this reminding me of? What's happening inside of me? How can I re-regulate, my body, mind, and spirit, so that I act in accordance with my values?
Yeah. Oh, that's
So
what. Yeah.
that's really that self. We're back to that and, right? It's not only about you and I, and you and I in the universe. It's me and me, and moving from I to we. But it matters too that we know ourselves and we understand ourselves.
Right.
And when I was a chaplain, the person who was the head of the program when I interviewed said to me, so what is one of this was at Hartford Hospital, and it was a level 4 trauma center. It was and he said to me, what is the one area or more within this hospital that you won't be able to serve? This was in the interview. And I thought for a moment. I knew exactly what it was. And I said, children. I can't, I'm not going to be able to do that. And I thought, well, there goes that. Like, I'm not.
Yeah.
And he said, you're hired. Because we all have limitations. We all need to know where I'm not the one to do that. And someone else can do that and can't fill in the blank, go to another unit.
Know thyself.
Know thyself.
Yeah, and there's strength in that. And so good for you for knowing yourself, but also good for the person interviewing you that he recognized the value of somebody who knew herself truly and well enough to be able to, and also was courageous enough to be honest about it,
Right.
instead of, caving to what we all feel in job interviews, what's the right thing to say, but instead you were going to say the honest thing.
Yes.
And so well done, and well done for your interviewer
and it
as well.
leads us to realize we can't possibly respond and do everything on our own. There's no
Right.
way.
Yeah.
So whoever you are, what a gift.
Yeah, absolutely.
And whatever
Right.
calls you, that's, to share
Right.
that, that's
Right.
fantastic.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I like very much what you were saying about, to take a moment to calm yourself and collect yourself and make sure that in every possible moment that you are doing your best to live out the values that support you.
Right.
The ones that you adhere to and that support you, because that's where our strength comes from, and that's where our calm comes from,
Yes.
and that's where our joy comes from
Yes.
also. Because there are a few things in life I think more gratifying than feeling as though you have, in fact, in spite of obstacles or challenges, you have just spent a moment being true to yourself.
Right?
So,
Yes.
yeah.
It feels good.
It does
Right.
feel good.
And we need community and friends. We need the person we can call and be like, I am so angry.
Yeah.
Right? But maybe it doesn't have to be said on social media or to the person that you're angry at in that moment. Again, I'm in no way thinking we're all going to be little saints, right?
No, but that's not necessarily what being. It depends on how you define saint.
Yeah, no, there's a pretty radical, but yeah, it's, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I know that you've said that related to these issues that you have a personal motto that you live by, and I was hoping that you could name it for us, what it means to you to have it, and perhaps give us some examples of how you work to make your motto how you live every day.
Wow, that's a great question. So I truly do believe that connection is the answer, and that it is connection with ourselves. It's everything we're talking about. Connection with others. That other could be, a squirrel in your yard. It could be the person in front of you. It could be the stranger in the grocery store. And connection with something greater than yourself. And that could be nature, it could be music, it could be the universe, it could be God, it could be our values, it could be love. But, and when we live in that level of connection, again, in a very flawed, imperfect, fluid, but as you said, there's really nothing more gratifying, right? And than to live that way. And so for me, that is one of my mottos. How do I live connected to myself, connected to others, and connected to my understanding of what is greater than all of us, that mystery, right? That we're in between two mysteries. And then your other question is, how do I do that?
Yeah, or just examples of, because we all are aware. I mean, it's not always an easy thing to do. It takes a lot of, it takes focus.
Yes.
It takes awareness.
Yes.
And sometimes it takes a choice.
Yes.
So if there are examples that come to mind of times or situations when, I remember my motto.
Yeah. Well, so that's such a good question. These are more, I guess, sort of things I apply in my own life.
Yeah.
Maybe specific situations will come to mind, but it really is so important that we do put ourselves first. And I learned this, it was beautiful, from some nuns. And I thought when I went there that it was going to be this, community of just give, because they had a ministry of feeding homeless people. And they did it after all of their own practices of devotion together.
Okay.
Always.
Yeah.
They didn't unlock the door till they'd spent, So I do believe that if we're not at our best, which changes day to day, that we're only able to bring and give our own state of being,
Oh, well put.
right?
Yeah. Right.
So if I am exhausted, angry, irritated, stressed, and I don't do what I can to restore myself to that calm and equanimity and love and connected to the values, we're contagious. We are interconnected.
Yeah,
so I will affect
absolutely.
the person
Yeah.
in the parking lot, at the store that I first see.
Yeah.
And even if we try to act differently, people know. Right?
Yeah.
You get in someone's presence and you feel it.
Right. It's a wordless awareness.
It is a word. I
and
love
because
that.
it's wordless, sometimes people don't acknowledge that it's there. But all you
Yes.
have to do is be in a room and somebody really angry comes in. They don't have to say anything. It's like a wave of energy
right.
that hits you.
Yeah.
And so but fortunately the other end of that is I think that really happy people also have an impact. It's
Yes.
wordless.
Yes.
And you
It's a
can walk
beam.
past people sometimes and feel that, you've just got a beam of something.
Yes.
Which is why I think we all benefit from sharing more, doing what we can to be as positive, as happy as we can,
Yeah.
because it's like a resource for the universe.
Yes.
Because it does ripple and spread.
Yeah.
So, and this,
Connected,
the contrary
right?
is true as well.
Authentic.
Yeah, that's right.
I don't want to give an impression that happiness is this like plumhead. My daughter used to call it plumheadedness. No. I'm talking about being real and being
Yeah,
who
absolutely.
you are.
Right.
And the people we love the most, imagine that, right? It has nothing to do with that external, right,
Yeah.
stuff.
Right.
It's because they're who they are.
Yeah.
And I think about even authors and people, some of the more sort of populist authors of whether it's Annie Lamott or, these are very imperfect people who are
Self-admittedly so.
totally themselves. And people are
Yeah.
hungry for that.
Absolutely.
They're like, I want that. I want to read that work
Yeah.
or hear that person talk.
Yeah.
Because they're just real.
And I think part of the appeal of that is because we spend a great deal of our lives, especially past the midpoint. This is a lot of what James Hollis writes about in his book, shedding layers of what's been imposed on us or embraced by us, of rules and expectations that starts very early on.
Yep.
And we don't always recognize until later in life the extent to which we are, who was it? Was it Einstein who said we live in shoes that are too small? That was in the Hollis book as well. You'll like this book. I'll
Oh, I
send you the
can't
name.
wait. It's holiday reading.
And I think a lot of the task of, like you talked about, the task of the second half of life with wholeness, and we
Yes.
can't find wholeness unless we know who we are, because we won't know what makes us whole. And so I think that appeal of authenticity is
Yes.
the people who have shed
Yes.
all of their worries and fears about what will people think of me if I say what I really think. Will I, starting with my family, will they reject me? Will my social groups reject me? Will I be attacked on social media? There are new constraints
Yes.
that the current.
And Mary, the answer I want to say to everyone is yes. Will everyone like me? No.
Right.
Will people disagree? Absolutely.
And that's
Will some people
yeah.
say, because they're human too.
That's
and they're
right.
in their own process. And I
right.
had to finally realize, it is a futile act and a complete betrayal of ourselves
Yeah.
if we're living under those things.
Right.
Because the truth is, not everyone's going to like you. That's okay.
It's impossible.
It's impossible.
It's just not how we're designed.
It's not.
Right.
And the paradox of this unity, this interconnectedness, is that we are all unique and individual and diverse and beautiful
Right.
in the unity.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean we're all the same, right? There's that, the particularity and the universal is a truth I hold very clearly, and the gifts of diversity and the gifts of recognizing that particularity of everyone
Yeah.
and every flower and every
Right.
is beautiful. This is not about trying to all be the same.
Yeah, there's beauty in that, and if you accept and cultivate your own distinct individuality, you won't be scared by it showing up in other people.
Yes,
So,
that's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
You'll be curious.
Yeah, curiosity. I've been reading a book by Ellen Langer. She's a Harvard psychologist. She talks about the mind-body unity.
Yes.
And she talks about her version of mindfulness isn't really a form of meditation. It's a form of paying attention to differences. It's a well-developed skill of being curious about what you're experiencing, which I found very appealing.
Yes.
As a way to live and as a way of defining mindfulness.
Yes.
Because a world that you're curious about is a world that is fun to live in.
Yes.
And a world that's fun to live in enhances all of everything we've been talking
Yes.
about. So,
And connection.
And connection,
If I'm
that's right.
curious,
Right.
I'm going to connect. I'm
Right.
going to go a little closer.
Right.
Whether it's via a book or a human or a kneeling down to look at a
Right.
flower that shouldn't be blooming.
Right.
I'm gonna go closer. Right?
Absolutely.
So
Right.
I love that. You give me another. You always give me really good book recommendations. Send me that one too. Mary.
I absolutely will. I know you love poetry.
I do.
And I'm pretty sure you probably have a poem or two
Yes.
that to share with us
Yes.
about the reflections on interconnectedness, and I hope you'll share them with us.
Do we have time for me to read two?
We absolutely do.
Okay, I'll read two. So, which one do I want to read first? I think I'll read Fred Lamott. He is a phenomenal poet and often reflects and writes on, without necessarily using the term interconnectedness, it's through his works. Professor of World Religions. And this particular poem is entitled My Ancestry DNA Results Came In.
Oh, okay.
My ancestry DNA results came in. Just as I suspected, my great-great-grandfather was a monarch butterfly. Much of who I am is still wriggling under a stone. I am part larva, but part hummingbird, too. There's dinosaur tar in my bone marrow. My golden hair sprang out of a meadow in Palestine. Genghis Khan is my fourth cousin, but I didn't get his dimples. My loins are loaded with banyan seeds from Sri Lanka, but I descended from Ravana, not Ram. My uncle is a Maston. There are traces of white people in my saliva. 3.7 billion years ago, I swirled in golden dust, dreaming of a planet overgrown with lingams and Jonas. More recently, say 60,000 BC, I walked on hairy paws across a land bridge, joining Sweden to Botswana. I am the bastard of the sun and the moon. I can no longer hide my heritage of raindrops and cougar scat. I am made of your grandmother's tears. You conquered rival tribesmen of your own color, chained them together, marched them naked to the coast, and sold them to colonials from Savannah. I was that brother you sold. I was the slave trader. I was the chain. Admit it. You have wings, vast and golden, like mine, like mine. You have sweat, black and salty, like mine, like mine. You have secrets silently singing in your blood, like mine, like mine. Don't pretend that Earth is not one family. Don't pretend we never hung from the same branch. Don't pretend we don't ripen on each other's breath. Don't pretend we didn't come here to forgive.
Wow, that's beautiful. That's
beautiful.
It just expands your mind and your heart enormously. It made me think while you were reading of Walt Whitman's "I Contain Multitudes."
Right.
You know,
Yes,
that's beautiful.
that's right.
I want his DNA.
I'll send you his book, you send me yours, and I'll
Okay.
leave it with that. I'll come another time and read
Well,
another
thank
poem.
you so much for sharing that. That's
Yes.
beautiful.
Yeah, thanks
Yeah.
for having me and asking.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Well, you
yes,
have another
poetry.
one, don't you?
I
Or
do.
you want to read it? Or- we have time if you
do
want
we?
to, but you don't. Yeah, we do.
Okay.
Yeah.
This is slightly different. Let me make sure I have the second side of it. Hold on. Okay. So, this is written by Lissel Muller. It's entitled Monet Refuses the Operation. So, she is responding to an article in Scientific American that addresses the fact that the universe is interconnected. And if you look for it online, you'll see she pulls from Scientific American, but this is her response. Doctor, you say there are no halos around the streetlights in Paris, and what I see is an aberration caused by old age, an affliction. I tell you, it has taken me all my life to arrive at the vision of gas lamps as angels, to soften and blur, and finally banish the edges that you regret I don't see, to learn that the line I called the horizon does not exist, and sky and water, so long apart, are the same state of being. 54 years before I could see, Rouen Cathedral is built of parallel shafts of sun. And now you want me to restore my youthful errors, fixed notions of top and bottom, the illusion of three-dimensional space, wisteria separate from the bridge it covers. I will not return to a universe of objects that don't know each other, as if islands were not the lost children of one great continent. Doctor, if only you could see how heaven pulls earth into its arms, and how infinitely the heart expands to claim this world, blue vapor without end.
Oh, that's beautiful. I love that. That's just gorgeous.
Thank you. I do too.
Yeah, yeah, I love that.
And I love that she's basically saying to the world, the doctor, you know, like, no. What you were saying about the second half of life, where we begin maybe to hopefully say, sorry.
Right.
Call me what you will, but that wisteria and that bridge, they're one.
There's more than one way to be. There's more than one way to see.
Yes.
And sometimes I think the doctor representing kind of like the scientific mindset, you know, kind of like, no, that's only one way of seeing. And I like the kind of impressionist
And
view of reality, sort of. And also, what I like about that is the idea that, you know, I've cultivated this way of seeing over my life.
Yes.
And it took me how many years to get here? And no, I like it. I'm sticking with it. Thank you very much.
Yes. That's right.
Oh, thank you so much, Rebecca. What a joy to talk to you. Thank you for gracing us with your presence and your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
And likewise, I always learn a lot from you. So
and thank you for my lovely present.
Yes,
I've cherished
our
that.
joy.
So,
thank you for all you do for the community.
Oh, well, it's my pleasure.
Wonderful show.
Anyway, thank you so much. I think that's it for today, everybody. So please join us again next Thursday at 9 for the morning show. Till then, be well, look for the connectedness, and you'll find it. All right, take care, everybody. Bye-bye.